Flashbacks.
We welcome Neville Rocky Roberts, one of the all-time greats. 98 games, 198 goals for West Torrens, 48 games, 81 goals for Richmond, 75-77, including 6 for Victoria playing centre in a state game. And then, of course, for the magnificent Redlegs, 108 games, 413 goals. Overall, 254 games, 692 goals. Leading goal kicker, 4 times at Norwood. Century, Norwood Team of the Century, Norwood Hall of Fame, South Australian Football Hall of Fame in 2006, one of the all-time greats. Welcome, Neville Rocky Roberts. Obviously, Norwood, Richmond and West Torrens superstar. Welcome aboard, Rock.
Rulebook, always good. Glad to talk to you.
Yes, and we're on a combined time space tonight, so we're probably going to race through a little bit quicker than we do normally. But Neville, the superstar junior, at Henley High, even your first game for West Torrens, BOG against Geelong. Give us an overview of your early career and then the decision to go to Richmond.
I can't believe you remember that Geelong game, but
Come on, Rocky,
I shouldn't be surprised. Shouldn't be surprised. Oh, look, I played junior football like every other player does, and went through Henley High School, which is, I guess, in later times become quite popular for producing good players. But we had a fantastic football program in those days, but there wasn't a pathway or an outcome that you could expect. So identification really came directly from the clubs, and I've got to say that if it wasn't for the West Torrens Footy Club, like a lot of players, I might have slipped through the system and not played league football at all. But so I'm greatly indebted to them and picking me up and showing me a pathway. And so I had a 2-year stint with them before going to Richmond, and then it's history. I came back. I captained West Torrens for 70, I came back from Richmond in 78, 9, and 80, 81. I captained the club for a couple of years, 80, 81, and then went to Norwood.
Out of that, Neville, I'll quite up jump in here and say that Neville wouldn't have left West Torrens if the administration had been more stable and decision-based, had been more professional. I'll add that. You don't have to comment on that, Neville, but it's obviously something I hate the word traitor being bashed about, where people don't understand which things are happening, how poorly clubs are run at times.
Oh, look, I think it's a fair comment. And look, to this day, there are people at the West Torrens Footy Club and they are champions of the club. Johnny Graham is a champion of the West Torrens Footy Club. He's, he has been an incredible proprietor of past players, and he's tried to protect what was the origins of the West Torrens Footy Club prior to the merger. And he protects that like his own territory and like the warrior he was when he played. And I respected him. I wore his jumper before I played for West Torrens, and he was a hero of mine. If you asked him today what his view of me, he'd call me a traitor. Yeah. And I get it. But I think it's time for Johnny to put down the weapons and give me a hug and say, well, look, I'm really sad you left us, but I understand to some degree. I'll probably never forgive you, but mate, we're short in life and long in memory. I think it's a little bit disappointing for me to not be able to celebrate my time at West Torrens because of things like that. But I think John will come around eventually. Anyway, I'll make him come around. But look, those days were fantastic, and we played a different and had a different environment and a quite different, if you like, community in football as compared to today. So, I was fortunate to end up, obviously, over time at Norwood, and the obvious followed. I had the success I was looking for.
And your time at Richmond, let's not forget, you decided to cross to Richmond as a kid still, really, going to a club who's won back-to-back premierships. Now, there's people out there who don't realise how successful Neville was at Richmond. Let's remember that he did get picked to play for Victoria back then when you only allowed to play 2 players per side. So Francis Burt was captain. So Neville got picked for Victoria in front of Kevin Bartlett, Royce Hart, etc., and kicked the casual 6 goals playing centre in a state game against Western Australia. And
it's a pretty handy effort.
You know, your second year, especially with ruck roving at Richmond and establish yourself, you made the decision to come back. Richmond were desperate to keep you.
Yeah, you've got fantastic factual information, and I guess when you put it in a synoptic explanation like that, where it seems so simple, that you would say, why in God's name wouldn't you have ever come back to Adelaide? And sometimes I ask the question, and sometimes I regret it. Sometimes I say, well, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
You know, we know the story of Peter Motley. We know, we all think that things might have been different if we'd made other decisions, but we'll never know. But look, yeah, I was incredibly fortunate to get drafted or picked by Richmond when they were winning premierships. I was incredibly fortunate to be, picked in a Victorian state team prior to State of Origin, ahead of, Sproul, Bartlett, Sheedy, Clay, Richardson. I mean, all of those guys. I mean, it was just ridiculous. Tommy Hafey was the coach, but I've got to say that I won't let my ego get the better of me here. But in my second year, I understood what was required. I was a kid when I went there. I was only 19, but I got it. And I've got to say that if you ever recognise the peak of your time in football, I think at 21, 22, I really got it. And I had an extraordinary mentor in Francis Burke, who gave me was a mentor and gave me a philosophy for life, which was simply make no excuses. There are no excuses. And I treated that advice, and I took it to the field, I took it to life, I took it to everything. And it's been my, a fabric of everything I've done. But I was incredibly fortunate to have all of those experiences at such a young age. And I've got to say, even running out for Victoria, I looked at the jumper before I put it on, and I thought, you got to be kidding me. In God's name, at 20 years of age, am I putting this thing on? But anyway, it happened, and I'm forever grateful.
Was it at your time at Richmond that you struck up a friendship with Neil Baum?
Absolutely. He was the sexiest thing going around in Melbourne at the time. He was huge. I mean, everyone wanted a piece of Barmy, and he was long hair and had the best looking girl in the town and all that sort of stuff going on. And we all thought, God, we're lucky to know him. But he was a bit of a larrikin, and he loved a beer. And we, in those days, got away with having a social life as well as a football life. And Barmy he was the head of the pack, and we became incredibly close. I think for chemistry, a bit of him looking after me. And the first game we played was my game was at Fitzroy. My first game. They'd won the year before in 74. And a fight broke out, and I was playing the forward pocket, and Barmy was resting at full forward, and Sheedy got hit over the head by a bloody umbrella from a spectator or something, and the whole thing just went berserk. And I sort of thought, I'd better run down. And Barmy said, hey, where you going? I said, he said, nah. He said, let's stay here. There's plenty of action. There's plenty of action going on here when it stops, and we might get the benefit of it. Anyway, free kick, ball in the square. Barmy takes the catch, kicks a goal. He said, "See what I told you, champ."
And a bit of irony there with your friendship with Barmy, because if that hadn't happened, you may have ended up, and you can explain to people why, you may have ended up playing for Port Adelaide.
Absolutely. I got recruited by Richmond when I was playing for West Torrens, and I flew over and back every week. And it was like a James Bond film. I flew over to Melbourne, and then I got helicopters to the Yarra and went to bloody Punt Road by taxi. It was quite incredible to get there, but I had lectures and things, so they were sympathetic to that. And that's how I started my career at Richmond. It was, really spectacular how Richmond were prepared to let me study in Adelaide and do all that sort of stuff. So the first year we had finals, and West Torrens weren't in the finals. But remember, I was flying over and back, so I was training with Torrens. I had nowhere to train, and I was still at university. So Port Adelaide, who I knew Jack and I knew Russell Ebert really well, and Richmond approached him and said, can he train there? And I did. And so consequently, I developed an incredibly good relationship with those guys for that final series. Go forward 3 or 4 years, I'm back in Adelaide. I've gone from West Torrens to Norwood. Jack hears that Jack Cale hears that I'm thinking of going to Norwood, and puts his hand out. And John Cale is a very, very personable man. He's a very charismatic guy, and I have no doubt why he was a champion coach. He put people together. He solidified it with his management, his character, all those sorts of things. But the one thing he had in common with the great coaches at the time, like Barassi and Hafey and Curley, was that they actually demanded that the top 8 or 9 players drive the whole scene. So, if you're a senior player at Richmond or Port or Norwood, whatever, that was how it worked. You drove the club, and these coaches were really good, like, Cale and all that. So Jack had a crack at me, but it was really my relationship with Barmy. In the end, I said, no, I've got to go to Norwood.
And getting you over the line to get to the parade was interesting. Wally Miller had to be convinced.
Look, there's no doubt, as a young man, I was probably a bit full of myself and believed all the press. And when I came back from Richmond, there was a lot of hype and all the Rocky stuff. And, it was a bit silly. But look, as a 21 to 3-year-old or whatever I was, I'd probably forgive myself for being a bit caught up in it all. And that didn't sit well with Norwood, because Norwood was more of a conservative club. And I think if I was really honest, I probably became a bit of an individual rather than a team player. And I think that was a sort of a consequence of all the attention I got. And I probably look back on that and say, look, I should have been smarter. But notwithstanding that, Norwood really wouldn't tolerate that. And Wally said, we want you, but we don't want Rocky. And I said, well, that's your problem. That's your problem, not mine, because I can't stop it. And today we still laugh about it.
So obviously you moved to Norwood in 1982 and tasted a bit of success quite quickly.
Well, we did, and it was just quite incredible to say that the reasons I left West Torrens, I was captain, all that sort of stuff, and people are still young kids still wearing your duffel coat. I mean, that's a really emotional thing. People would not probably maybe appreciate how difficult it is when you're captain of a club and you've got all this, admiration from young people to what appears to be turn your back on them. It was a really big deal. And right up to the last minute, I probably wouldn't have gone if it wasn't for Barmy ringing me and saying, look, you sort of have to be a bit selfish about your life and what you achieve in life. And you can be loyal and stay with the Eagles and do all that, and we'd appreciate that, and we wouldn't have any regrets. But I think you've really got to examine your own mind and the identity you want in football and what you want to be remembered for, and that is to be the best you can be in the best possible environment. And I had to make decisions about those things, which were a little bit political and weren't easy, but I did and went. And first year, I got absolutely, indemnified, I guess, my decision to leave in the sense that it was endorsed by a premiership.
And we came home with a train in 82. All the comments made, and we said at Norwood we underachieved and all that. I admit, Neville, I've probably softened that stance over the years. You think 82, the qualifying final against Sturt, we were down in the last quarter. The second semi against Port hit the front in the last quarter. And then in 84, with the history makers thing, we were gone against Centrals in the first semi and managed to get out of jail in the last 5 minutes. So I've probably eased off a bit on that, and I think we probably don't show enough respect to how bloody strong the competition was overall.
Oh, it was incredible. It's easy to look at the AFL now and see us as a secondary competition, but when I went to Richmond, there was really, it was an equitable competition between Melbourne, Tasmania, us, and SNFL and Waffle. And, I went, but I came back. And, everyone forgets, when I offer a regret about coming back, great mates of mine like Barmy and Barry Richardson and others who are Francis Burke say, well, quite frankly, there was not much between us. I mean, we were beating them at State of Origin and doing all that sort of stuff. So it's easy, it was easy to make those decisions now. But right now, to make that, comparison is unfair. What I regret now about the whole Australian situation with football is that because we're not in the AFL, all of us, other than the AFL, are worthless. Yeah. And we're not part of the deal. Well, it is garbage. And I say, I've got mates in the AFL, as you know, rule book, and I've said to them as recently as 5 months ago, what about why did we not do our own competition? Why didn't we just say, well, we'll have a national league and we'll start with Norwood, Port, Sturt, whoever. Why do you guys get to do it? Yeah. And no one's got an answer for that. No. Who made them the owners of football in Australia? So all of a sudden, South Melbourne, Fitzroy, Brisbane, Collingwood, all of a sudden they're the only clubs that actually matter. And all of the other, look at Norwood, look at its history, look at this fantastic bloody brand. And all of a sudden, what are we? We're an amateur league club playing in, I hate that.
Yeah, likewise.
And I've got the last thing I want to do in football, and I've probably even never said this to our president, is I want to see Norwood in the national competition because it doesn't deserve to have its brand disrespected by everybody and its players.
Yeah, I get that, Neville, but I'm still a little bit. I admit, I wish the AFL had never started. Personally, I loved when the SANFL was the big deal here. So I'm showing my age and old-fashioned side of things and that. But I love being a part of Norwood Football Club. Being to Norwood tonight, being with Fanta and Paul Dealio and all that. You're actually a person where at an AFL level, you're just a number. You're member number 3,817. Where at Norwood, I'm part of Norwood Football Club, where for me that's still big. But, so I see where that's coming. We're coming from
Robert,
as well.
You're right. Look, let me be very clear. The Norwood Footy Club, run by Paul and Fanta, we have got it right from the top down. We are cherry ripe. We have no dickheads in our club. We're heavily managed. We've got an incredibly good coach. We've got great coaches. Our players are respectful and good people and all that sort of stuff. So guess what? You win a flag. Well, I'm not surprised at that because we got everything right, and it doesn't happen often. But I think in relation to what you're saying, we as a club probably have a penchant to say, well, we deserve with our brand and everything to be playing at the highest level of competition, and that's not happening for us. So it's going to be a lagging and I think endemic problem in our club, in our personalities, that we will want that to happen because we want to be in the best competition. But having said all of that, we are the best. We have proved last year with respect to the other clubs, we were the best in that competition, and that's the best we can do. It's but I respect what you were saying, Rulebook. I probably don't think much differently.
Yeah. Now back to your own career, Neville. People out there, the professionalism of Neville Roberts and Norwood Football Club and that, but the professionalism of Neville Roberts and Michael H together. Now, Pete, what used to happen, they'd end up training and they would boot the crap out of the ball the distance we are apart now. Mm-hmm. and in the hands, and it'd be the one who'd drop the first ball had to buy lunch the next day, or whenever they were.
Yep.
I admit, I stayed at Norwood one night, and I was the only person still there, for 40 minutes. They were over 1,000, and they were booting the living daylights out of each other, and it showed where Neville was so good in front of his body and the hands.
Yep.
And I love the bit too. Neither Aishi or Neville are on Facebook, so something will come up, and I'll send it through to the two of them. And then I just sit back and piss myself laughing the rest of the day at the game of tennis at the bullshit back and forth between the two of them. And I just sit in the middle and get the benefit of the entertainment.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Well, I suppose, does that correlate with kicking 117 goals in 1983?
Oh, look, I think it's a rule of 10,000, guys. I mean, I'm helping twig a little bit with some of our kids.
I was going to come back to that. Yes.
Yeah, but I think one of the things I tell them is we get the process and the routine right and all that sort of stuff, but it's fine to sort of have a process or have a plan, or in relation to kicking goals and doing other things or catching balls. But if you don't actually practice it, the rule of 10,000 is basically that you've got to do something 10,000 times for it to become innate, become part of your personality, so you don't actually think about it. The reality is that back then, that little program I did with Aishi, I did at Richmond with Francis Burke. He was just one of the great immortals of the Richmond Footy Club. And we used to do that after night at Punt Road, and it's smash, smash, smash. And I lived with Francis, so, I had to pay a price at home, wash the dishes, or do whatever I had to do with him and Kerry. But the reality of it is that it was just watch the ball hit your hands. And if I got one message for kids, it's always, watch the ball hit your hands. And the kids think, they sort of look at it, but they don't look at it. Watch it like you can't look at anything else. And that was what that taught us. And Aishi and I did that. We had another competition where we kicked the ball 40 metres and we had to step more than a metre either side. We had this bet. I think Aishi owes me about $400,000. He'll never pay it. Little prick.
It's that one. I do it as well with coaching. I've done a kids cricket coaching clinic this week. What do you catch the ball with? And of course the kids all answer. Well, in your hands. Say no. Come on, keep going.
With your eyes, yeah.
And then I make them close their eyes. We'll catch the ball. It's without the eye. And it is. Watch the ball is the most common. It's the three words we use the most. Whatever coaching we're doing.
I remember my time out at Norwood. They'd make you read the gauge of the ball basically into your hands, which was always a good one for me.
Now, Neville, your involvement this year back at the parade, so came in involved with the forwards probably about halfway through the year, roughly.
Oh, a bit later, but probably 60%.
Yep. And so Neville was watching games, reviewing, trying to get our forward movement a bit better, which and that side of things. Now, Neville, were you thinking exactly the same thing I was when Ben Jarvis, who you'd been doing a fair bit of work with, when Jarvo had the kick 50-odd metres out, my first thought was, leave the language out, he's this far out because it'll make him kick through it. And I'm thinking, just do what Neville has been working with. Was in my thought process as he came in. And, of course, 50 metres out, he launched it.
Jeez, he nailed it, didn't he?
And if he'd been 30 out...
Different story, maybe.
I wouldn't have been backing him with my wallet, sort of thing. And I, as he kicked that and it's gone through, I will say, you bloody beauty, Neville Roberts, I did think of that at the time.
Well, I reckon you shift your focus back to Ben, and he is a really tough head.
He's a good kid.
He's essentially really he's a tough-minded young fellow, and he's essentially a very skilled forward who can kick goals from basically anywhere. So my job really was to sort of try and get a process that sort of protected him under pressure. When the thing about a process or a routine is to take away the pressure of the man on the mark, the white noise that's going on around you, can I kick it, can I? having a process, it means you go into another room, do all that sort of. Anyway, Ben got that quickly, and that essentially was my role. But you can't, it's no merit to me. It's really a merit to the kids who look at it and say, well, I get what Neville's trying to tell us, and I'll take it on board, and hopefully it makes me better. I say to people now, and it's as easy for us now to say, shit, you don't want Ben Jarvis's kick, but if you get it, meaning you don't want that last kick in a grand final, but if you get it, you don't want to not be able to kick it. You need to have the skills, and you need to have the process to do it. So, look, the reality of it was that he was up to the challenge, and probably would have been anyway. But I think one of the great things with Ben is that he doesn't suffer pressure too badly, and I think giving him a process gave him a little bit more protection from that sort of pressure. And but having said all of that, mate, it's still a huge kick, isn't it? Outside 50, 8 points down, or whatever it was, and what an incredible get for a young man. I mean, and I'll tell you a story. There's a young kid at Norwood called Luke Sermon, and he's a good man, and he had a good final in a lot of ways, but missed 3 goals. Yep. So within 2 weeks of that final being finished, he rang me and said, I'd like to try and straighten up and do this. So we met regularly 2 or 3 times. We took twice a week for several times before now, and I'm really happy with how he's going. But he did say, if we hadn't have won that grand final, I wouldn't have slept for 1,000 years. And because he missed goals probably that he thought he should have kicked. Interesting, isn't it?
He's a complex. He really means well, Luke. He's a complex kid.
But to show initiative like that, it's fantastic. I think that's great.
I think that's fantastic. Yeah, likewise. Righto, Neville, we'll keep going because there's a couple of things we've got to mention. Obviously, the history-making premiership in '84, captain in the club, and then I'll then back. I thought you were treated disgracefully as coach. That losing final, turned up, got back to Norwood. I ended up spending most of that night with you, and I thought it was disgraceful that you were nearly ostracised, I felt, that night, and I may have told a few people that night as well, so that probably wasn't the best chapter at Norwood, but the '84 and then captain in the club. Of course, captaining South Australia. Go for it, Rock.
Oh, yeah, look, I think captaining South Australia was an incredible honour, and it's a bit personal, it's a bit private and all that, but, it was a fantastic evolution and part of my footy career, and playing State of Origin was extraordinary. They were incredible games at Adelaide, as we all remember. They're packed out, and they were what they were, and, that remains a highlight. I think, the coaching Norwood was, again, it's an incredible honour to coach a club with that sort of brand, and what followed from it was probably more a management issue, and I wouldn't hold back from saying that we weren't well managed then, and there were people who had the one thing about footy clubs that never ceases to amaze me is when they're not going well, it's generally because presidents and others, they're barrackers, they're footy pervs. They want to hang around with blokes who have got profiles, and they want to barrack for the club. We've got people involved in our club now as serious management people, serious administrators. They don't barrack. They don't wear club blazers to go to lunches. It's a more serious environment than that. And I think back when I was coaching, we suffered. Essentially suffered fools, and I probably should have been smarter. I've been in business all my life. Should have put myself in that environment. I got what I deserved, in the sense that I put myself in that environment with people who I probably shouldn't have trusted to do what they said they were going to do. I'm not saying that I was better than I was as a coach. I mean, we weren't a complete failure, but
No.
As you know, and I think, without defending myself, you go from not coaching to coaching. You need 3 years to learn what's going on. I mean, the first time an ex-player or a potential coach steps into the box to coach, he has no idea what he's doing. He looks at the game and says, "Holy shit, I'm looking at this as a player." It takes a year before you look at it as a coach. And then in my second year, I was lucky enough to be able to convince Michael Taylor to come back to the club, which was fantastic because he is just the greatest man, and I love him. And a great mate, and he helped me immensely and taught me to think as a coach because he'd been with the Crows and all that sort of stuff. So, look, lessons in life, rule book, we move past them, and I say, well, I was probably in the wrong place at the wrong time, but, I'm lucky. It will always be recorded that I coached the Norwood Footy Club, and what a great honour that was.
Now, Pete, there was one funny bit with Rock in terms of, or a couple, but I walked in and walked upstairs at the Cathedral, the Richmond game, and it turns out Neville's being interviewed by Dale Waitman upstairs. And I walk in and Neville sees me walking, he's gone, "Shit, I better not make any mistakes in my career now because this prick's better than I am." And there's all these people staring at what the hell's just happened? And then Neville gets to the Norwood bit. He said at Norwood, and I'm yelling out, "Take your time, Rock. This could go for half an hour at least." And these Richmond people are staring at, who in the effing hell is this idiot? Sort of thing. And, of course, greatly, Jeff Wilson and I always greatly appreciate you for the room that night at Richmond and those couple of nights in over in 83.
You're very welcome.
We're an education in life, to say the least, those couple of weeks, Rock.
Oh, well, it's,
goes on tour, stays on tour.
Absolutely, and you're very welcome.
Mate, I'll just go back very, very quickly. My favourite grand final, obviously, was the history-making 84 grand final. Mate, Port Adelaide, the arch-enemy, so to speak. What are your memories of that day?
Oh, incredibly. We managed to just make the finals by the skin of our teeth. So from about 4 games out of the final series, we were playing grand finals every week, and obviously through the final series, every game was a knockout game. So we became tougher and tougher and tougher. But the one thing that I think that probably eludes everybody is we didn't have any injuries. I mean, I don't know how you play so many hard games. I think we had one injury. It might have been.
We were very settled.
Where we were, I mean, there was Vardas or someone had an injury.
Rowan Hellier got injured.
Oh, Hellier, that's right.
Jarvo came back.
That's right. So incredibly lucky to have that run, but I think as the games progressed and we went through, Glenelg or South, Glenelg, whatever.
South Central's Glenelg was the order.
Yeah, so they were all close. They were all tough. They were all on nail biters, and so I think what happened was that they was a bit like swimming 5 laps today, 10 laps next week, 30 laps a week after. We just became stronger, and we handled pressure better. And when it came to the final, we're 8 points down going to the last quarter. We had absolutely no doubt we're going to win it. I could just often think, why in God's name were we so confident we're going to win this? We're 8 points down. That's 2 goals. We're going to kick 2 before they do anything. But it was just almost in our heads that we own this. We're going to take this. This belongs to us.
Well, the Central's first semi, we were nearly 3 goals down with 5 or so minutes to go.
I know.
Reminiscent of this year's final.
Yeah,
grand
it was.
Final.
There were certain similarities there. And then the prelim final, let's be honest, I'm not exactly upset. Glenelg were 2 goals 14 at one stage, so that didn't hurt. So, and then the grand final against Port is still, I think, the 73, Glenelg North, and the 84 are the two
big
grand
ones
finals for me. 84 is a biased Norwood man, yes, but I still think they're the 2 great. And look, I have 1980 up there where Norwood, we nearly grabbed the victory where we were underdog against a great Port side as another great grand final. So I'm showing there that probably at least a bit of balance there, that Port did win that game, but 73 and 84 are the 2 for me.
Certainly consistent through those 5 or 6 years, through 78 to 84.
I think if you look back on that period between 80 and 86, I said to Twig the other night in front of the other coaches, I think it's a bit embarrassing that we didn't actually do better in that window than just 2 flags. I mean,
but as I said, let's let's do remember that 82, the qualifying against Sturt, we were down by 15 points in the last quarter. So I did used to have that thought process, and then I thought, and I've actually spoken about that with Barmy in terms of going, well, hang on, 82, 84, there's times we certainly weren't going to win in those two. So I just think we probably, Norwood, we're a proud club, we'd go at ourselves, but I show more respect now overall to the competition. I think how good North Adelaide and Glenelg were in that era as well.
Oh, look, they were very strong.
West Adelaide in 83 were the best forward line overall. They were an incredible side in 83.
Well, that we lost to them in a prelim and they won it. But
no, we lost the second semi.
It's look, as you know, it's easy to go back and be retrospective, and we're all smarter in hindsight. But you're only as good as the performance on the day. And I was very, very pleased having made the move to Norwood that we picked up a couple of flags in the last part of my career.
And you were very emotional grand final day. It was a pleasure. You're not great at looking for a camera afterwards, Rock. That wasn't your strength. But yes, look, we're still celebrating as far as I'm concerned at Norwood at the moment. Greatly appreciated too, Neville, and that for tonight, and obviously greatly appreciate your friendship over the years, and etc.
Look, mate, you're very welcome, and you're a great Norwood man, and you make a lot of contributions there. Gratuitously and generously, and it's greatly appreciated. So we'll catch up soon, no doubt. Thanks, mate.
Thank you, Rocky. Thank you for joining us tonight, mate.
You're welcome. All the best. Bye, boys.
We've just been speaking to Rocky Roberts. Mate, I have to change your name from the rule book to the encyclopedia. You are a wealth of knowledge when it comes to stats.
It's not. I wish I'd been a bit better at schoolwork than the stats, but I admit, don't lose too many footy arguments or bets, mate.
Rocky was fantastic in talking about his time over in Victoria with Richmond at the Richmond Footy Club. His great mate in Neil Baum, who sort of got him over to Norwood. I didn't realise he could have ended up at Port Adelaide. That's an amazing story.
Yes, it's probably not that well known, that one.